Good morning. I know you know the importance of what's coming up Tuesday, June the 24th. And it's an election that can change the wave and the tide of the state of Mississippi. I'm here today with Brad White, who is a part of Thad Cochran's campaign group, I guess you would say. I'm not sure what would be the correct word for that. But I had talked with Brad earlier, and we've been talking back and forth, and I had some questions that I wanted to ask him. And let me repeat again, this is a news report, and it is not an endorsement of any candidate. There we go. Let's start with that. All right, Brad. I'm going to start off right what I think, from what people say to me. He's older. Thad Cochran's old. He's been in the Senate 6 terms. I hear on the commercials, if he hasn't got it done in however many years that is, what makes you think he'll get it done now? But my question is, what has he gotten done?
Well, let me address the years of his service, first of all. The United States Congress is set up to where it rewards seniority. That's how it doles out of power, if you will. You're appointed to committees in the Senate and in the House, and then you move up towards the chairmanship of that committee by seniority, how long you've served. So, with that being the system of government we have, you know, I don't understand the belief that someone could serve too long, because that's the way in which our representatives gain the influence and the ability to best serve our states. And if you look in the history of Mississippi, that's what's always helped us, is because we've elected people and allowed them to gain that seniority, whether it was John Stennis or Jim Eastland or Jamie Whitten or Sonny Montgomery. They were all able to be effective due to the amount of years that they served there and the seniority that they gained. And Senator Cochran now is the second most senior Republican in the United States Senate.
Really?
Which means he is ranking member of the Agriculture Committee. He's the most senior Republican on appropriations that handles how the money is spent for the nation. And if re-elected for another 6-year term with a Republican majority, would become President Pro Tem of the Senate, which makes him third in line to the presidency. So one of the advantages of him being there so long is it's allowed him to gain the necessary tools through seniority to be influential and to help our state and help craft policy for our country. The negative part of that is he is in a minority there, so he's not driving the ship, if you will. The Democrats control the Senate, and as we talked earlier before the taping, I understand that there is a lot of people that's upset with the direction of Washington. Certainly I am. But you have to realize that the Republican Party controls 1/2 of 1/3 of the federal government. So the people that are making decisions now, President Barack Obama, Harry Reid, who leads the Senate, the Republicans control the House of Representatives. But the way that we change policy is by changing the people that control what our policy is. And right now that would be by defeating Democrats, by electing a Republican majority in the Senate. And it's very unfortunate that a lot of the outside groups from out of state have chose to spend a lot of money here trying to defeat Senator Cochran rather than spending in states where they could try to help elect Republicans there that would give us a Republican majority, where in this case Senator Cochran would be the chairman of appropriations and able to do even more with the control he would have over that committee. So I think it's unfair to say that he hasn't done anything for Mississippi, because if you speak with anybody that has played any role in government, from the past governors, both Democrat and Republican, to members of the legislature, both Democrat and Republican, to mayors and supervisors, and you talk with people like Chip Morgan, that has a Delta Council that's in charge of all the farming and agricultural groups in the Delta, to people like Jerry St. Pay, that used to be the head of Ingalls Shipyard, that recognizes importance there. Senator Cochran's influence and ability to serve our state in ways that Trent Lott the other day was talking about how on 3 different occasions Congress, during the closing of military bases around the country, where Meridian's naval base came up to be shut down. And it was due to Senator Cochran's seniority, by having been there to gain the seniority and his influence, that has been able to stop that from happening. But here in Simpson County, I can give you some examples. Simpson General Hospital, as I've said before, was a county-owned hospital. Was floundering at one time. It's doing very well now. We're proud of that. But at one time, it had bills in the tune of $1 million. had a lot of problems, and the taxpayers all over Simpson County, not just the Mendenhall area, faced being saddled with that. A not-for-profit group was going to buy the hospital from the county, pay off the bills, getting the taxpayers off the hook, but also enabling a new administration to come in with the hospital and try to turn it around where health care and the jobs associated with it can be saved. And I was working at the Economic Development Office at that time. And it all got tied down in bureaucracy to where it was about to, the deal wasn't going to go through, if you will. And we called Senator Cochran, and he made one phone call to the Secretary of Agriculture, who was overseeing the USDA loans, and was able to cut through the red tape, again, due to his seniority, that allowed for the sale of that. And that saved all those jobs. It saved all the health care needs of that part of our county. But it also protected the taxpayers across Simpson County from being saddled with that $1 billion of debt that they owed. Our courthouse, the most beautiful courthouse in the state.
Yes.
Ceilings and floors were falling in because of it being a historical site. You can't just go into that and build and repair it the way you or I would our home.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be kept to a certain standard, and the financial responsibility of doing that was just, well, our supervisors weren't going to be able to do it without raising taxes. And Senator Cochran was able to find money to appropriate for that through some historical appropriations that was able to restore the courthouse. That's why we have a functioning courthouse now. But, you know, he didn't toot his own horn, but he's responsible for that.
Well, don't you think that maybe that's the situation? He doesn't toot his own horn?
Well,
Because, you know, I had no idea about that. I didn't have any idea that he was influential in the fact that we were able to restore our courthouse or save our hospital.
Senator Cochran is a very humble man. He, you know, as I've said before, one of the things that make him such a great man kind of hurts him in politics because he's not going to toot his own horn.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to brag on himself. He's not going to try to get out front. He's not going to give fiery speeches and beat on the tables and things like that. He's known in Washington, D.C. as being the quiet persuader that everyone across the board respects. But I mean, you look at his service after Katrina alone. I mean, South Mississippi had been reduced to rubble. I can remember Governor Barber saying, with the first time he flew over the coast in a helicopter after it, that it literally looked like the hand of God just wiped the coast clean and left nothing there. And Senator Cochran at that time was chairman of appropriations, and it was due to his position and his leadership that he was able to do the heavy lifting to get the state the resources to rebuild the Gulf Coast in South Mississippi. And we received some of those funds here as well to help restore some of the problems we had as far north as Simpson County.
Mm-hmm.
But it was Senator Cochran that was able to do those things.
So really, what you're saying is seniority is what we've got to have. I
Well,
mean,
that-
we've just about got to have seniority to move forward in certain areas. I know at some point we're not going to have someone that's in seniority because things will change or whatever. But I don't know, it bothers me because I think in this day and age, we do look for someone, in our mind, we have this envision of how a politician ought to be. And he doesn't fit the mold. And I think it confuses people that if we don't know who he is, and I think that's another sad thing, is that we get away from looking at the man instead of looking at what he's done too. I think you need to look at both. But the progress that he's made and what he's done for us, because, you know, just now in what you say, there's just so many things that if that seniority is taken away, you know, it's going to make a difference.
Well, I think in our politicians, we should look for workhorses, not show horses. And if somebody that can carry the load and that serve, you know, one of the things that I hear about Senator Cochran that I think speaks to how honorable he is and how well he served our state is regardless of your party affiliation, everyone respects Senator Cochran. Because once he runs as a Republican, but once he's elected, he tries to serve everybody in Mississippi. It doesn't matter of your race, your party affiliation, of where you live within the state, whether it's the Delta or the coast. If Mississippians have needs, he always tries to meet them. I can give you a list of people, veterans, that have had problems getting their due benefits. And whenever they would run into those problems with Veteran Affairs, it's Senator Cochran's office that goes in and helps them because of the influence and his ability to step in and cut through a lot of that red tape. On the way down here, I drove down 49 Highway. There's a lot of construction going on in McGee and Mendenhall on 49.
Mm-hmm.
All of those are federal dollars that are shifted back to Mississippi that the Department of Transportation uses to upgrade our highway system here in this county and across the state.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't realize that it's important to have somebody there that when those dollars when the pie is getting cut, he's sitting there holding the knife. And that helps a lot to have that. So I understand the frustration with Washington, but I truly would urge everyone to look and weigh what is at stake here. And I've never, in all the years I've been involved in politics, I've never seen an election where what is decided Tuesday will, the very next day, will direct what happens to us as a state, where we go. And we will lose so much if we lose Senator Cochran. And I hear the opposition saying, that we should, federal dollars that are not explicitly explained or decreed by the Constitution to be spent should not be spent. And that sounds great. But if we were to take that position, that would cost the state of Mississippi almost $2 billion in education funding. It would cost the state of Mississippi almost over $400 million in transportation funds. And I would want to remind everyone that Social Security nor Medicare, neither one are mentioned expressly in the Constitution.
It's true. You're right.
If you go to cutting all of those things, where do you think the money would have to be made up? It's going to be made up in our local taxes, and our property taxes, or sales tax. And there's just a lot at stake at this in this election, and I hope that everyone will weigh very carefully what they hear, and will look at Senator Cochran's record. Before this campaign started, one of the Jeff Pender, who's an editorialist with the Clarion Ledger, wrote that Thad Cochran is one of the only people that can put on his resume, save the state of Mississippi from financial ruin. And I don't know why we would want to replace someone that can do that and that has done that for our state.
Okay, hearing all that, I agree, but I have to ask you this, because this has been a question that anytime I've been anywhere has been brought up, and I'm sure y'all have faced it continuously. The deal with the McDaniel supporters and the pictures that were made of his wife in the nursing home. Okay, what I keep hearing is it was a setup by Senator Cochran's group.
And that's absolutely ludicrous. I mean, it's hard for me to even hear that and not just become angry.
I'm sure.
That's just ludicrous. I mean, he's a father. He's got 2 children. He's got grandchildren that he shares with Mrs. Cochran. She, for the last 15 to 20 years, has suffered with this illness that has taken her from him, if you will. And to suggest that he would ever show that kind of disrespect for her or put his family through that is just absolutely ludicrous. And shortly after that happened, his son and daughter came out with a public statement in support of him. They were obviously appalled by what happened. But again, I think that's where you see Senator Cochran's character, in that he himself never said anything other than it's been turned over to the authorities, and whatever they find, I will accept and trust them to do what's right. And I think that's fair to him. And I will tell you that I know some of the individuals that were involved in that on the side that were arrested and that have been to court for doing that. And they're not tied to the Cochran campaign. They were open supporters of the McDaniel campaign. So, I never suggested I had never suggested that there was a conspiracy from the McDaniel side, but if someone wants to start pointing fingers, those individuals were much more closely aligned with the McDaniel campaign than the Cochran.
Be interesting to do the real checking on it. Sometimes we do hear just one side of a story, or we don't hear the entire story. And I hope that with your listening to Brad today, that you've learned more about Senator Cochran and what he has done for the state of Mississippi, what he has meant to our state. You as the voter have to make the decision on how you're going to vote Tuesday. Brad tells you what he thinks. You listen to what Chris McDaniel's people think, and you have to decide. But I hope you'll never take your privilege of voting lightly, that you will realize the impact that as a voter we have on our country and especially on our state for many, many years to come, especially for a term or whatever. And again, this is not a paid political announcement. This is a news broadcast. And so at any time, anyone else wants to come and give their opinion, they're welcome to come. And I thank you for
Thank
taking
you for
time.
having me.
I appreciate you very much.
Thank you.
And I hope I'll see you at the polls on Tuesday, June the 24th.